Welcome to the Soulful Mystics podcast. I'm Steph.
And I'm Julie, and we are intuitive hypnotists, sharing our journey along the way.
Hey Mystics, we are so excited to share this conversation with you. Have you ever had a dream so vivid it felt more than just a dream? Or a connection with someone within a dream that felt really real? Almost like a shared experience beyond the physical. Today, we are sharing an experience of telepathic communication in the dream state. If you have a story that you want to share, please send us an email at soulfulmysticspodcast@gmail.com. And before we begin, we have some exciting events coming up that we'd love for you to be a part of. Julie's amazing Soul Circle gatherings in March will be tomorrow, March 13th, 2025, at 6 p.m. Central Time. This one's going to be all about aligning with the energy of the spring equinox. And on March 25th, 6 p.m. Central Time, will be her gathering for wisdom of the guides. You can register for both of these transformative events at soulseekerhypnosis.com under the events section. We will be chatting a bit more about Julie's amazing Soul Circle gatherings in this episode. You can truly feel Julie's passion shine through her Soul Circle gatherings. I highly recommend group hypnosis, and with everything going on energetically, Julie's March focus is going to be exactly what a lot of us need. Speaking of everything going on energetically, a good friend of mine, Sharon, had this idea to get 4 healers that she's worked with together for a day of community healing. And so on March 30th, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be collaborating with an incredible group of healers for a beautiful day of wisdom, intention, and deep healing. Joining me for this sacred circle is Meri Fowler from the Sacred Cauldron, offering Wiccan healing, Tania Thomas, an intuitive medium, and Debora, a shamanic healer. I'll be sharing more details on what to expect and how to sign up this week. So be sure to subscribe to both of our email lists so that you don't miss any important updates or events. And of course, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Now, let's dive into telepathy in the Dreamworld. Today we have Meri with us. Unfortunately, Julie can't be here. She's sick and lost her voice, but she is with us in spirit. Today we're talking about our personal connection with telepathy inspired by the Telepathy Tapes podcast. Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good.
I had a dream or a theme of a dream all night one night. It was on February 7th. Oh my God, it feels like it was ages ago.
I know it was just what? See, I don't even know. 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Something like that.
it's
I
wild.
know it's the 21st, but I can't do math.
I can't do the math. No. So I woke up at 4:20 a.m. and I was lucid dreaming and I kept thinking I have to remember to write this down, but I didn't want to open my eyes because I didn't want to ruin it. And of course I lost most of the details. But I was standing in a space where there was these like huge archways and there was this platform that we were standing on with just hundreds of these archways. When I was looking through mine, I could see like the universe, I could see stars.
Mhm.
Whereas through other archways, there were different kinds of landscapes. So it felt like the most expansive. My human body, I knew when I woke up, could not grasp and could not explain. But in that moment, I really sat in it and I was like, this is just such a huge and amazing feeling. It felt endless. And you were there. So we kind of looked at each other and you smiled. And I jumped through my archway. So you went through another one. I ended up sitting in a classroom. So I was learning and teaching at the same time. And that felt natural. And that's what we do every day. Is we're always learning
Right.
and we're always teaching.
Mhm.
So it felt like I was there all along. I just kind of my soul hopped into that body in the middle of giving and receiving that lecture. And my cousin Alyssa walked in and I was speaking about the universe. There was a man who I decided represented the universe, but I forgot. And I remembered thinking, I have to remember why, but I forgot his story and why or how he came to represent that for me. And so Alyssa said, that's the guy that told me about the class. He's just a regular man. And then I said, see how the universe gives us each a piece of the puzzle. We need to share our experiences to get the whole picture. And then I woke up and I was like,
Beautiful. That's a beautiful dream stuff.
yeah, I still feel it. And it feels, when you're looking to take a course and you could
Mhm.
take a course that's $10,000, like let's say hypnosis, right? I wanted to do
Right.
hypnosis for a while. And when Gina came to us and said that she was going to be doing a course on hypnosis, I was like, yes, And I got so much more from working with her than I would have going for the big name. And I feel like that's what it was telling me. Work with somebody, talk to people, learn from them, put it through your own
Right.
intuitive channels, take what resonates, and then spread the word, right? And I feel like that's what we're doing as a collective right now is
Yep.
sharing stories, sharing experiences, learning from different cultures and what their life experience is, and learning about it so that we can make this world a better place.
Yep. That message was a beautiful, beautiful dream. I hope you wrote it down in details so that you can always remember it.
Yeah, I did.
Because just the dream itself is a teaching moment to share.
Yeah.
That's why I share my dreams because, like, they affect me, obviously. I'm not just seeing the dream, I'm experiencing the dream and I'm feeling all the feels, right?
Mhm.
But sharing it is also part of the reason I feel like I had the dream or I went to that place in my dream because it wouldn't just help me,
Yeah.
it would help so many
Yeah.
to understand that, whatever that is, depending on the crazy dream that I have.
Yeah. Your dreams are wild.
They are.
What was it? Like a few months ago, you reached out to me on Instagram if you want to tell us about that dream that started
Yes.
conversation.
This was one of those when I woke up, it was kind of a quicker dream, but like the moment of vividness, when things just seem more real than real, that was in my mind when I woke up. October 15th of 2024 that I had the dream. In the dream, I was at your house and I knew in the dream that these were like relatives of you and Max, your partner. I saw a lot of people and I was basically there was a kitchen area with a long counter, a dining room table with chairs around it, and then a sliding door that went out to, I think it was a deck. And so the adults were milling about. And I don't remember actually talking to you. I don't remember talking to Max, although at some point I was introduced to Max's uncle. I specifically remember that. But I was sitting in a dining room chair and the chair was kind of turned. So, like to my right, the table was there and I was kind of facing out and I could see the kitchen area. There were two women in there. One was very blonde or had white hair. I could hear them talking and they were looking at me in the dining room because sitting on my lap was this little girl who probably in the dream, I want to say was like 7. And she was sitting facing me on my lap and she leaned forward and took off my glasses and she set them on the table. And then she took both of her hands on either side of my cheeks, came in real close and was looking in my eyes. And we weren't talking. There was no talking, and yet she was talking in my head. And I can tell you it felt like she knew everything. Like she knew me just by looking in my eyes. She could tell what was in my heart, that kind of knowing about somebody. So there's no explanation or no introduction needed. It was just seeing me, really seeing me. And it was at that point that I woke up from the dream. And I remember laying there, I'm like, oh my gosh, Stephanie was in there, but I don't remember Stephanie. And so I kind of went through the dream in my head. And then I got to the part where I had woke up from and the little girl, I'm like, I bet you that was Stephanie's niece. She mentioned I couldn't remember. Is it Emma? Emily? Like, I know she has a niece. I'm like, this is wild. I'm gonna let Stephanie know. So I believe on Instagram I DM'd you just as, I had this dream. I said, well, I met Max's uncle. There were all these people. We were there. There were women cooking food. It was like kind of a nice gathering. And this little girl, I think, was your niece. And then I explained the dream to you.
Yeah.
And at the time, you're like, oh, yeah, that does sound like something Emma might do. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's really cool. And then in December, I hadn't heard from you in a while. And so I think I DM'd you again just to see how you were doing. How was your Christmas? And I think at that time I said, I'm listening to this new podcast that I think you would really like. And I really thought of you because of that dream with Emma. I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm watching the telepathy or watching, I'm listening to the telepathy tapes. And I really thought of you because of that dream with Emma, like talking to me with telepathy, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh my god, I somebody had told me about that and I couldn't remember the name of it. I'm gonna listen."
Yeah.
And then in January, like the big like January 7th, I think it was, you emailed me and you said, I just want you to know I've been listening to the telepathy tapes. I really love them. I actually gave the name of that podcast to Emma's mom so she could listen, which is good. And then you mentioned wanting to do, let's try this experiment, Mary. Can you send me a picture of you? I just want Emma's mom to show it to her to see if there's any recognition or what she says. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Okay. And I'll let you take it from there because your response kind of blew my mind.
Yeah. So I told her about your dream and I explained our connection. And I said, can you show her this photo and just see what she says or ask if she knows this woman? And so she did. And she wrote back to me saying she showed the picture to Emma and she said, do you recognize this woman or do you know this woman? And Emma replied to her, no, I don't know her, but I've seen her in my dreams. I don't know her name. And then Alex messaged me like, WTF? Like, what do I do with this information? Like it blew her mind for sure.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I knew it. Like I wasn't surprised.
Right.
Because that's kind of how you and I met too. We
Mhm.
both joined Gina's kinship group and we were all new. It was a very small group. So we didn't know each other, but we were both emailing Gina that, like, I was
Mhm.
emailing her that Meri popped up in my hypnosis. And then you had emailed her saying, Steph popped up in my hypnosis. I wonder what her experience was. And then she connected us via email and we were just sharing that. And it happened a few times. So when you wrote to me about that dream, first of all, there was a lot of connections. Max and Emma's relationship, their connection is such a beautiful thing. She loves him so much. And I know she loves me too. But if I were to go somewhere where she's at and I don't have Max with me, when she was younger, she used to cry and push me out the
Oh,
door.
like, go get him.
Yeah, she would say in her way, like, Mononc Max, come back with him or don't come back. It's just, and when I talked to him about this, I told him about this whole experience. And oh, also his uncle has passed. And so that's why I feel like you remember him very clearly and Emma, the way that that interaction or those interactions, because they are on a different astral plane in a sense of like Emma's able to connect or communicate that way and he's passed on. So I feel like that was stronger for that reason.
With Max's uncle, I thought that was interesting in that sometimes I dream about people that have passed on, like friends that I've known or family. And in the dream, they're not even passed on. And sometimes the one of the latest ones, I lost a friend that passed away, and she was probably like a year younger than me. So I was a year ahead of her in school, but she was like my one of my ride or die kind of girls. And in the dream, it was after her funeral. We're at her house and we're getting ready to go out like we used to do when we were 18, 17, whatever. And she's standing on the other side of the table. And I said to her, I'm like, Roxanne, they told me you died. And her response to me was one that would be very typical. Like if I didn't get a joke of something, she goes, Mary, I did. And then I woke up and I get goosebumps just saying it. And I'm like, oh, she hasn't even lost her sense of humor of
Yeah.
like ding dong, I did. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was her. But I realized when I was like thinking back on what she looked like, she didn't look like when we were 17. She probably looked maybe 30. I guess they say sometimes you go back to like your healthiest point or, when you felt the best.
Yeah.
It's like this is more than just a dream because you're somewhere else. You're like on a different plane. And I think when you're in that astral, I mean, Emma was in the astral with me, right? She was probably dreaming too. And that's why I got to be introduced to Max's uncle because I don't remember Max actually introducing me. This is the weird thing. I just remember being introduced to him, but I cannot tell you who introduced me.
Yeah.
All those other people were probably people that are not passed over. They are people that are in your life and Max's life, but that uncle was on that same plane
Yeah.
in that moment, and I got to meet him. And I don't remember us having a big discussion or anything, but I remember meeting him, so I knew he was there.
Yeah. And when we first moved here, we were actually moving in. And when I was walking up the ramp to go into the front door, I saw a man sitting on a chair that was given to us by Max's dad, which is his uncle's brother. and he was looking out at the lake. Immediately, I knew it was his uncle. So he had passed a year or so before, and every year they would go fishing together. Max, his dad, and his two uncles. And where they would fish every year is right maybe 10 minutes from where we just moved. And I think,
Wow.
you know, he's here, he's enjoying the space and the water with Max. Max sometimes goes out on our lake and fishes by himself, and I know his uncle's out there with him. And
Right.
what's funny is my sister-in-law the same day walked up that ramp and saw him sitting on that chair too. And when she came in and she said, "I just saw a man sitting on that chair," I was like, "Shut up." And we both described him, and it was the exact same, like, same image.
Wow.
And Meredith always says that I have the craziest stories whenever I write to her. So I was so glad that you're the one who reached out or that you
I
told her
know.
about all this.
How I got with told Meredith that she did an online thing for all the planetary changes in
Oh,
the
the
new
big
year.
5?
Right. And I signed up for that to hear what she had to say because I love how she explains astrology.
Mhm.
She's like my go-to person. She explains it in a way that it like applies to your life here and now.
Yep.
Like, she explains it in a very real, funny, sarcastic,
Yeah.
relatable way for me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, I like your style." So that's why I've always gravitated toward her. So I listened to that, and she mentioned something about the telepathy tapes in there, and I was already listening to them, but I had a scheduled astrology reading with her coming up. I knew she was into the telepathy tapes, so I told her that dream, and then what happened in December and January
Yeah.
with your niece, and she was just blown away. You can't even make it up. This has really happened. And I think it's a way of just the universe or whatever, just sort of kind of, no, this is real. This is a tangible, real thing.
Yeah.
It's not like I have some special ability or that she does. This is what we all, on some level, are doing anyway.
Mhm.
Just to be like cognizant of it, open to it, and work that muscle a little more.
Yep.
And that's going to be a way to communicate in the future.
Yeah.
And I think as we, as a collective, move into a different frequency, I think it's like an introduction to a way of life that will actually end up being down the line.
Yeah.
But it's like you have an innate ability to do that. You're born with this
Yeah.
quote power or gift. It's in everybody, which is why we're practicing like remote viewing and things like that. Everybody can do it.
Yep.
It's amazing what you do. You surprise yourself.
Yeah. It's about learning this whole journey for me, why I wanted to get into practicing after listening to the telepathy tapes and talking to you about all this is because I want to understand Emma the way that her parents do. I never understood that it was telepathy, but I could see it now.
Right.
You know, like she has a way to get us to understand, which it's just brilliant. She's always had that ability to get us to understand in some way. But I want to communicate with her in a way that she was born to. And right now she's adapting to us and to society and what's expected. But these kids on the telepathy tapes, they're like, we already know how to communicate. You're just not accepting the way, like society is not accepting the way that we do it. And I find it inspiring. These parents just go with it and they're sharing it. And they're always like so happy and joyful when they're explaining it because it's a beautiful gift for us. Like we don't
Mhm.
see it every day. So for us to be able to witness it and with her seeing your photo and saying, I saw her in my dream, it sparks so much love and curiosity about what else might be hidden
Right.
that we're not allowing to develop because we don't understand it yet. There's so much to explore there. And I wanted to talk about Julie because she's not here. So, like taking that opportunity to hype her up in a way that she wouldn't normally feel comfortable with if she was here. But her group hypnosis, I feel that connection and that different way of communicating with the other people who are there.
Yeah.
Every time people share in a group hypnosis afterwards, there's all these little connections. The theme is usually the same, even though we've never met before. We're not even looking at each other. We're just all listening to the same thing and we're moving into the same space, I believe. And we're experiencing maybe different things, but the message. I've never been to a group hypnosis where the message was different.
That's one of the things that I notice when you do a group hypnosis because we all have the same intention or a place we're going. You would think that the lesson learned or the healing that is offered or whatever comes through would be as individual as the way we view the world and see things and experience things. But actually, when you start talking about as a group afterward, it's almost like you weren't in each other's hypnosis, but we were all given the same theme of healing. And maybe it sounded different, but it's the same. Like
Yeah.
we all went and came back with the same message about that. And then that group that we're together talking about it, it just emphasizes it and pushes it home more when we're all talking about it. Like
Yeah.
that combined energy of everybody talking about it and experiencing the same. And we might all be different people, but we all have very similar things that we're growing and healing from. It's a beautiful shared moment with a group of people.
And that's it for today's episode. Until next time, stay curious.
Stay mystical.